so much for being here. I want to do a quick informal survey. How did you find out about tonight? Just shout it out.
From you.
Oh, from me?
On Google.
On Google? Yeah?
Facebook.
Awesome.
My
Facebook?
group.
Okay, that's cool. So the way it works is I'm going to introduce our featured reader, and then this sheet is going to go around. If you would like to read after our featured reader, it's an open mic. We highly encourage you guys to stay around. I know that it'll be hard to, oh hey, it's here, sorry. It'll be hard after you hear Ursula stuff, no pressure, Ursula. But if you'd like to read, it's a 4-minute limit. I'm going to have a timer on my phone. When the timer goes off, you should stop what you're reading. And we love it when people share their work. So my name is Charlotte Gullick, and I'm chair of the Creative Writing Department at Austin Community College. We are very lucky to have an awesome partnership with this great space. Malvern Books, if you haven't figured it out yet, they only carry independently published books, which is really amazing. And it's nice that this space is available to students and for faculty and other folks associated with the ACC to read. On Wednesday night, we have another featured presenter. Taria Person is a spoken word and community activist, so I encourage you to come back on Wednesday to hear her. And sometime in May, we will have the student reading, the folks who submit their work and get it published in the Rio Review, which is ACC's Creative Writing Journal, will read. So come back for that as well. I'm so used to being in the classroom, like, questions? So it is my delight to introduce Ursula Pike. She's a former ACC student who has earned her MFA in creative writing from the Institute of American Indian Arts. Her writing has appeared in World Literature Today and the Rio Review. She is a member of the Karuk Tribe of California who lives in Austin. So that's like her official bio. What I would like you to know is that she's one of the most dynamite people I've ever met in my life. And I'm really excited to hear what she's going to share with us tonight. So please help me welcome Ursula Pike.
Well, thank you, welcome. And I'm going to read 2 short pieces today. This first one is called Fry Bread, and it was in the Yellow Medicine Review. Fry bread is messy. There's the making of it, mixing together flour, water, salt, and lard. Some recipes include yeast, some don't. Honestly, I'm guessing here. My mother never made fry bread. She made loaves of whole wheat bread, so dense with fiber and brown goodness that one piece filled me up. But I imagine that, like any bread-making process, it involves flour that spills on the floor and sticky dough that never lets go. Throw the dough into a hot puddle of grease, and a few seconds later, a puffy golden piece of fry bread emerges. Funnel cake without the cloud of powdered sugar, churros sin azúcar. My friends and I who volunteer at the powwow know fry bread isn't good for us. Through education and geography, we've made lives that we never imagined when we were little Cherokee, Katua, or Karuk girls. We work out a little extra and limit our carbs the day before the powwow to prepare for this treat. We are treadmillers and Zumbaers who understand the difference between good and bad fats, the glycemic index, and the need for fiber. Fry bread has almost no fiber. And the USDA has calculated that even a small piece is 300 calories. But we always eat fry bread at the powwow. We pay $5 for that piece of flour and grease and water. I like to put powdered sugar on it, shaking the silver tin over the still hot, bumpy surface while balancing it on a paper plate. A gust of wind will blow the sweet powder onto my arms and shirt. Bees buzz menacingly near the honey container. Then there's the Indian taco. When I was growing up in Oregon, we called them Navajo tacos. Someone must have thought a generic Indian was more palatable. Beans and meat are spread over the top of the fry bread. Then comes cheese, shredded iceberg lettuce, and tiny spoonfuls of tomatoes. There's chiles if you're lucky. Sitting on a hard bench, watching the dancers jingle around the powwow arena, I balance my Indian taco on my lap and try not to spill it. The thin, white knife and fork from the fry bread stand are never strong enough to cut through the layers of beans, quickly hardening crust, and chewy interior. Eventually, I give up and rip it apart, stuffing the pieces into my mouth. My fingers get sticky and wet. I usually forget to pick up napkins. When no one's looking, I wipe my hands on the underside of my jeans. Once I attended a lecture by a Comanche screenwriter who said he had one rule: no fry bread. He never had his characters eat, make, or mention fry bread. It was too much of a stereotype, like native characters with amazing tracking skills and stumbling Indians outside Western bars. It's expected. I understand that. The desire to show the world an authentic version of native life. And even as I switch on the GPS to find my way home, I know I will eat the fry bread. My sister hates fry bread. Except for pizza, she's into that paleo thing. She reminds me that fry bread isn't even a traditional food for Northern California tribes like ours. Smoked salmon, yes. Mushrooms, for sure. Poofage, even better. But I now live in a city where people don't shoot deer. They stand by and live stream videos of them eating their aloe plants. Spell check also apparently has a problem with fry bread. A red squiggly line appears every time I write the word. It doesn't recognize fry bread. Ignore. I've stood in line at fry bread stands in hot, windy parking lots near the freeway, on the dry grass of a reservation, across the street from a casino, and on a college campus with few actual native students. That line is familiar to me. The low talkers, the lady tapping her foot and checking the time on her phone every few seconds. That line is as familiar as the pressure my German Catholic husband feels when he kneels in front of the priest to receive his communion wafer. He has been swallowing that host his entire life. I have seen this ritual around pieces of bread play out in cavernous stained glass chapels and in cramped churches with beige carpeting left over from the 70s. The wafer shapeshifts into their deity, and they consume it. Eating that piece of bread doesn't make him Catholic any more than eating a piece of fry bread makes me native, or eating a funnel cake makes someone a Midwesterner. Yet, although he doesn't attend Mass much anymore, he can still lay claim to that identity. Non-practicing is the term I've heard used. I attend fewer powwows and eat less fry bread than I did when I was growing up, but I'm still a native, a practicing native. When I eat fry bread, I can't tell if I feel like the fakest genuine native or the most authentic fake Indian. Either way, I will always eat the fry bread. And for my second piece, I'm going to read a piece called Choctaw Made Farms. It was July, but the chicken processing plant was a refrigerator inside. And even though the march up the steep flight of stairs to the front door took me a few more minutes each week, I look forward to pushing through the heavy metal doors into the lobby when the whoosh of cold air hit my sweaty neck and the temperature dropped 15 degrees. I stopped and enjoyed the coolness in a way that a girl from the temperate forests of the Pacific Northwest never appreciated until this, my first summer in Mississippi. "Sweetheart, ain't you done had that baby yet?" the receptionist asked. "No, ma'am." It was the 30th week of my pregnancy. No one counts down the weeks of gestation with as much dread as a 34-year-old woman who gets knocked up by accident. Enough of my friends had miscarried that I didn't take this for granted. I tucked my dry erase board under my arm and walked into the employee cafeteria where fluorescent lights reflected off of gray floors. The room filled with people as the shift changed, and I navigated my way behind heads covered in white hairnets and torsos hidden under long white coats. The quality and marketability of the chicken carcasses being cut into pieces on the other side of the wall required that everything be cool, clean, and sterile. In the windowless square room, I found Rosa and Miguel already waiting for class to begin. Every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m., a training room in the cafeteria at the Choctaw Maid Farm's chicken processing plant became my classroom. I unloaded dry erase markers, purple Inglés Uno workbooks, flashcards, and pens from my backpack. Elaine, the other teacher, hadn't arrived yet. Elaine had grown up in Mississippi and was shiny and bubbly, but not in an annoying way. She taught ESL because she couldn't figure out what else to do with her degree in Spanish. "Well, hello, little mama," Elaine said when she breezed in behind me. Elaine taught the advanced class and I had the beginners. Miguel moved the tables and pulled the heavy curtain, dividing the room into two. "The students want to have their graduation ceremony at the Chinese restaurant. You know the one?" Elaine asked before the class began. Rosa had told me how much she and the rest of the workers liked to eat at the Chinese restaurant off Main Street. Elaine and I had eaten there, and it wasn't the food or that it was even cheap. It had something to do with how the immigrants who ran the restaurant didn't ignore them like they did at the other places in town. Once class started, they became students, not workers. In between lessons about English prepositions, they told me what it was like for them here in Carthage, the geographic center of Mississippi. I didn't know their immigration status, and I'd like to think I wouldn't have taken the job if that had been a requirement. But I did know many of them had recently arrived in the country. They came from Mexico, but also Honduras, and some from as far away as Argentina. Several had traveled from the same village in Guatemala. Many lived in the trailers next to the plant. Mustard-colored metal hulks, accented by rust spots and stacks of cinder blocks in place of stairs. 6 or 7 people crowded into one single wide American dream. Halfway through class, everyone from her side of the room laughed out loud. "What's so funny?" I asked Elaine after class ended. "Oh, that," Elaine giggled. Dimples appeared on her cheeks. A student asked what fangers meant. I didn't understand what he was saying, so I asked where he'd heard it. "Watch out for your fingers," his supervisor kept telling him. Fingers, fingers, dedos. Our students loved these moments when we could laugh at their bosses. I was on their side and I wanted them to know it, even though outside this room we never crossed paths. My socks started to smell like cold dead chickens. The chicken hovering above the Choctaw Maid Farms logo was stamped on everything from hard hats to letterhead. This part of Mississippi was Choctaw Indian land, but the plant had no connection to the tribe. Like the smiling Indian princess on Land O'Lakes butter, Mazola corn oils, we call it maize commercial, and Eskimo pies, connecting a product to the assumed purity and innocence of indigenous people was too attractive not to appropriate. But this part of Mississippi was full of actual indigenous people. Each Tuesday and Thursday on my way to and from work, I drove by the Golden Moon Casino, operated by the Mississippi Band of the Choctaw Indians. Thousands of tourists came to play golf, eat too much at the buffet, drink cold beer, and watch country music stars from 20 years ago. Living in Mississippi was an adventure. When I packed up my little blue almost paid for car on September 11th, 2002 and left Oregon, I didn't turn on the radio. September 11th was the reason I was moving, but I didn't want to think about it. I didn't personally know anyone who died, but in that year after the attacks, life felt fragile. Moving to Mississippi to pursue a newly rekindled romance seemed logical. My boyfriend was also a Northerner, and we entertained our family and friends back home with stories about eating pork chop sandwiches at midnight outside juke joints and drinking moonshine from a mason jar. Drive as fast as you want on that road out to Clarksdale. They only stop black people out there, a friend told my boyfriend. We exchanged looks, and I didn't know what to say. "Look, it's not fair," he said. "It's the way it is here." When I needed to make handouts for class, I went in early to ask the office staff in my nicest, most respectful voice if I could use the copy machine. I stood next to cubicles while the copier churned out 15 handouts for a lesson on directions, around the block, down the street, across the bridge. A lesson with illustrations that looked like the Hollywood version of an American town. Nothing like the blocks here in Mississippi or the streets they grew up on in Guatemala. The Choctaw-made farms employees told me how hard these Mexicans worked, but that they wished they could find American workers who would do the jobs. No one else, not even in Mississippi, wanted to spend 10 hours a day on their feet cutting up chicken parts for $5 an hour. Their computers blinked with games of solitaire and stained coffee machine, and a stained coffee machine made it seem like any other office. Still, we couldn't escape the smell of chicken carcasses on the other side of the wall. Ignore, yes, but not escape. I was part of the gig economy before the term existed, working on a contract with no benefits or insurance. The only thing that saved my baby and me was that same Choctaw reservation I drove through. They allowed me to see the doctors and nutritionists in their new casino-funded clinic because the Choctaws shared their resources with members of other tribal nations. They helped me with my WIC coupons, gave me a free car seat, and even walked me through my Medicaid application. For the first time in my life, I had a native doctor. When the nurse first told me I was pregnant, I freaked out a little bit. All the racism, poverty, pickled eggs, and red dirt roads were merely an interesting aspect of modern-day America when this place wasn't my home. But having a baby in the Magnolia State was something else. Mississippi would be stamped on my child's birth certificate forever. One afternoon, as I was setting up my flashcards and books, a student came, pulled me into the hallway. "Can you translate for a friend of mine?" she asked. Yeah, but I only have a few minutes. This is Amelia." I was introduced to a short woman wearing a brown sweater that hugged her round stomach. Tengo que regresar a mi trabajo. She had a baby 2 weeks earlier and wanted to come back to work. In the office, a tall white woman with earplugs dangling around her neck and a clean white lab coat walked by. Amelia motioned to the woman with her chin. "She wants to come back to work," I translated. The tall woman sighed and said curtly, "Tell her she has to have a note from her doctor before she can return." She shrugged. When I translated the information, the short, round woman looked down at the ground. She thanked me and then shuffled toward the big metal doors leading to the outside world. I wondered who was watching her baby. How desperate was her situation that she was rushing back to work in this stinky, cold vault. I was scared for that woman and her baby. I rubbed my stomach and thought about my own baby. Elaine said she would help me find a substitute teacher to fill in while I was out. This was the opposite of a dream job, but I needed to know that I would have a job to come back to. 21st century mothering was not turning out like I'd hoped. No robot nursemaids or self-changing diapers like they promised. Just hard choices. A few weeks later, as I drove home from teaching a night class I picked up for extra money, I felt the pressure and pain of the first contractions. I was alone on a dark 2-lane highway in the middle of the reservation. There was nothing to do but drive forward until I reached the house where my boyfriend and I grabbed the hospital overnight bag and prepared to welcome our child into this world. Thank you.
I'm all weepy today. I'm so just thinking about the line that says, "This is the first time I had, as a Native woman, having a Native doctor," just the importance of that. I was really, really struck by that line. So thank you.